Hey everybody. There we are. We have the countdown and I have here with me tonight uh Mike from, and I'm going to pronounce your band name wrong right off the bat. I think it's Cortege. Cortege.
You got it. You
All
got it.
right. Mike from
Oh, I
Cortege.
was
Mike.
saying it wrong.
Well, how are you saying it, Jenny?
Cortege.
Well, see, there you go. We've learned something tonight already. That's awesome. And I had to look it up, of course, as I was like, "What is What is cortege?" And you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong about this, Mike. Is it not um, a formalized like funerary procession? Is that correct?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
it's like when you're running late for work and then like traffic stopped and then all these cars are passing by.
That is the cortege. Yes. Okay. All right. And then I have Jenny from Jenny and the Housewives. Jenny, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I pronounced that correctly. All right, then we're good. Uh, and I am Roger from the DNA Vibrators. So the reason why we're getting together here tonight and chatting across a pretty broad swath of the United States here, Mike, are you in Austin or are you in Atlanta or somewhere in between?
I'm still in Austin.
I
Still in
see.
Austin.
So from Texas to Carbondale and a little further down south from Carbondale here in Metropolis. So we're all connecting up here.
Well, actually,
We're
I'm in Murphy.
You're in Murphy. Okay, fair enough. All right. So we have at least two significantly poor internet spots represented here. And then the shining example of Austin there of all the modern stuff that actually works when it's supposed to. So far, it's still working here. Um, so
In
we're
my shiny camper.
very, very nice. This is your camper that you haul behind that big beautiful Eldorado that you have.
Oh no, I tow with my van.
I see.
I'll
Okay.
get like I get like 3 miles to the gallon if I told it with my Aldo.
Yeah, that's great. So we're here tonight so that we can talk a little bit about an upcoming show. So we have we're all on the bill at PK's on June 13th. That's a Thursday. That's kind of in the midst of or towards the beginning of, but in your kind of southeastern tour of the United States. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah. It's almost halfway.
Nice, nice. All right. I have to tell you that, and I contacted Jenny earlier too, because I felt like I was horning in on your show, right? And I wanted to make sure
No,
that nobody
it's all
felt that way. But literally like 2 years ago, I was the band I'm in was getting uh, a little more active in Carbondale in the area. And I kept on thinking, boy, it'd be really cool if Mike's band came up here and played. I'd like hit him up and see if he wanted to do a show together or something like that. And I literally was thinking about that. I don't know, probably the week before I saw the first bill come up that showed your tour dates, and I saw Carbondale on there, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then I saw that you were playing at PK's, and I literally contacted Wally right then at PK's, and I was like, "Hey, Wally, is anybody playing with Cortege? Because if not, I'd love to do that." And he was like, "Well, we do have a band that's playing." He didn't tell me that you guys were playing, Jenny, but he just said there is a band playing. But if you wanted to join that bill, that would be great. Because normally he does like three bands, like a couple locals in support of the touring band. And I was like, as long as it's not gonna be uncomfortable or whatever, we would love to do that. So he was like, yeah, whatever, that's cool. And I said, is it okay if I reach out to everybody? He's like, yeah, sure. So that's when I just started hitting you guys on Messenger and places like that to kind of let you know. And honestly, it was very sweet. Everybody was like, "Oh, cool, that's awesome," or "Hey, no, that's cool. It'd be fun to play together," which is the best part about the Carbondale music scene from my perspective. Everybody has been totally cool to some old guy like me that's getting back into it, and has been very welcoming all the way around.
Well,
So
it's funny that you say that because actually I was, the shoe was sort of on the other foot for me not very long ago. There was a band, I actually saw it on, it's a band from Cincinnati called Lung, and I saw it on their
oh yeah.
page that they were booked at PK's. I didn't even see it on, PK's page. I saw it on Lung's page that they were going to be playing at PK's, and I reached out to them and I said, hey guys, like do you have somebody on that show? Yeah, it doesn't mention who you're playing with. Do you who else is on that show? And the drummer from Lung said, "Oh well, I don't know. I have no idea if there's a local band on that show yet or not." But I said, "Well, I'll ask Wally." And so I did the same thing you did. I hit up Wally and I said, "Hey, is there a local on that show already or not?" Because Lung said that they would love to have us, and turned out, the person that booked that show had already got like two other local bands on there already, and they went ahead and just slid us in anyway. They slid us onto the
Yeah.
lineup, and but then that show wound up actually getting canceled. Uh, One of the other member of that, they're just a two piece. The other member of that band uh, broke their ankle.
Oh damn.
And so they canceled the rest of their tour,
Oh
didn't wind
wow.
up coming to Carbondale at all, and so they canceled that show. That was back in February, and, actually, this because that got canceled, this will be our first show since Halloween.
Wow. Well, that's awesome then. Well, I'm glad that that's working out. And for those of you out there those one or two of you that might be tuning in or listening, Lung, awesome band, a duo, right? Am I right about
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah,
cello and drum.
just killer, cool, unusual, totally worth your time if you happen to see them if you're in
Oh,
the
for sure.
Cincinnati area, or if you just happen to be like in our area and they're around or whatever, you should check them out for sure.
Just check out their records, they got some really good, albums out.
Yeah.
Is
So I'm gonna circle around. First of all, it's great to hear. Props to Wally and PK's. Wally has helped reinvigorate the Carbondale music scene. He's so open to hearing a wide variety of bands. So like, Mike Cortege has come in, and that's awesome. There's few bands that will cross that stage that will be similar to you guys. So that's really cool to see. And I'm just thinking of just like in the last few weeks, not terribly long ago, like the Josue Estrada band played, just a
Oh,
super
I love
cool
them. I love them.
Latin fusion, just cool stuff. And you'd be like, and that was at the biker bar, right? And that was always the reputation of PK's, years ago. And it's like, hell yeah, it is. And it's because that's where stuff is happening here in town. And there's lots of other
Oh,
places too.
oh,
But
did you catch them when they played at PK's just like a month ago, or something like that?
yeah, it was like on a Tuesday or something, right?
Tuesday night, yeah, and the very end of the night, they came up and they said, "Hey, by the way, our Chicago show tomorrow night isn't happening now, so we're just gonna stay in town. We'll be at Trace tomorrow." And so I went out Wednesday night and I caught
Oh
them 2 nights
wow.
in a row. I caught them on a
Yeah, they
Tuesday.
are. They are so good. So
So
I'm
good.
I'm gonna bring it over to you, Mike. So I've known you for a long time, and we don't have to get into the weeds about how we got to know each other, but I have fond memories of uh a I think a white Rickenbacker or something like that. I remember looking at
Yeah.
that bass guitar with you many, many years ago. You brought it in, and I had a chance to look at that. You remember that? I recall that.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to think. Unfortunately, that thing got stolen.
Oh my God.
I'm trying to think when. Maybe like 11 or 12 years ago.
Oh goodness gracious, that's terrible.
Uh,
You
yeah,
play a Dan Electro now, right? One of the Longhorns, is that correct?
yeah. It's actually it's a Jerry Jones, but it's the same thing.
Same style. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. Nice, nice. So it's like a baritone six, basically.
Yeah, it's 6 string bass.
Yeah, nice. Okay, that's very cool. So So that's how I first got to know you when at a time that I wasn't as heavily involved in the music scene. Like I was involved when I was much younger, was there for school. It's like late 80s through the 1990s. That's when I was heavily into what was going on in town, and then stopped for a while, for a pretty long while. And it wasn't until my daughters were going to school at SIU, and one of my daughters sees a poster in the living room at Lost Cross, the underground club there in Carbondale, and sees a poster of an old band that I was in, and she's like, "Dad, I saw your poster in the living room. You guys should play a show there." And I know I've told this story to a couple of people, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like fun. You happen to know some people I could play with, because I wasn't really in a band at that point." And but I hooked up with some of the old guys that are still there that I had played with years ago, and we said, we're old, but we're not dead yet, so we can give it a shot. And since since about 2020 or so, we got together and started playing again, and it's been in the last couple of years that we're gigging out pretty regularly and writing new material, and it absolutely makes you feel young again. And you guys will feel that at some point in your future when you're a little older, but man, it's been kind of revitalizing for me. So I got to know you kind of in one of those spots where I wasn't doing a lot of stuff musically in town. Tell us a little bit about your time in Carbondale, what musical stuff you were doing while you were in Carbondale, and where that led you, Mike.
Let me think. So when I was in Carbondale, I was like really discovering a lot of music. And I remember prior to being in Carbondale, when I was like growing up in Chicago, it was just like a lot of like classic rock radio. And then when I came to Carbondale, I was just like all these people, well, like any college campus, it's just like a big diverse group of people, and finding out about all this different music that I had no idea existed, and then just kind of like going from there. And like, yeah, sure, I played in some bar bands, or like what like dad rock bands and stuff like that. And but I remember seeing a lot of good shows in Carbondale, like definitely like bands off of like Infinity Cat Records and like Fat Possum, and then seeing like Daikaju a bunch, and seeing like Tweakbird a ton of times, and Broken Bricks, all kinds of bands, Parlor, all these great bands, and just like holding on to that. And then as I like got older, and when I eventually moved to Austin, it was just like I was wanting to do that, because I was just remember being in like basement shows at like Lost Cross, or like Ski House or something like that, or the Swamp, and just like wanting to like continuing to do that. I don't know. And then it's like almost 15 years later, I'm just like, I've always wanted to make it back to Carbondale, and like it's gonna happen. And people who are still there are like super excited that we're coming through.
Yeah, that is awesome. So tell me about the beginning of your current band, Cortege. Like how did that start? And you've been together for, tell me just, some of those details.
We've been a band for at least 8 years, because it started out, I had a different drummer, and it was definitely more like drony. I don't know. It was like a lot of Electric Wizard and Earth, and then I don't know. I wanted to do a duo, because we were a duo for a really long time, because like seeing like Tweakbird and like Death from Above and like Lightning Bolt, and like wanting to like do something like that. And I don't know, my current drummer is really big into country music, and he does a lot of like western swing. And like I always kind of like the Ennio Morricone, kind of Sergio Leone, kind of spaghetti western stuff. And it just like kind of just it it's it's gotten more cowboy over the years, and we added a trumpet player who I used to play in a band with, and it's just taking off. People just love the trumpet and all the energy because it's like it's ambient music, but we try to make it entertaining and
Yeah, no,
exciting.
that's awesome. So I didn't realize it was 8 years. I knew it had been several years because you've released several things over the records over that time. Jenny, I'm gonna switch gears. I want to talk to you a little bit also. So tell me a little bit about. So you know a little bit about my musical biography. It started in the '80s through the '90s. Was cut out for a while, not on purpose, like just because life and job and other stuff like that took me out of Carbondale, and I've kind of come back in lately. But I know that you've been working musically in town for years. So tell me a little bit about when you came to town and what that first band was, or where that led, or how that became Jenni and the Housewives, and kind of some of the stuff you've done.
Oh wow, that's kind of, I guess it's kind of my whole life story.
Let's hear it.
Well, so I mean, I even when I was like a little kid, I would always like, I was really into records and I wanted to write songs. And I would write down like lyrics to songs, like just as early as I can remember. It was like what I would play as a kid. And then at some point, in there, like when I got into high school and I wound up joining a band, and I was just the lead singer, and I was able to sort of, since I was just the vocalist, kind of observe and kind of learn through osmosis what the instrument players were doing, and I already had a little bit of a few things people had shown me on guitar, but that was in McLeansboro, which is not too far away. It's about 60 miles from Carbondale, 70 maybe. But yeah, so that was kind of like my first bands were there in McLeansboro. I had a couple there between like 2001 and 2005 or so. In 2003, I recorded a solo album. It was sort of like a high school graduation project.
Nice.
But then I came to SIU. I came to SIU in 2003. Um, start at going to SIU, and yeah, I somewhere along the lines, about the time I was wrapping up college, I graduated in 2007. I got a degree in audio production uh, under the School of Mass Communications and Media Arts, radio and television. Um, and so yeah, coming out of that experience, I really didn't spend a lot of time like in the bars, on the local scene, checking out local bands while I was in college. It was kind of like once I had graduated, that was the next chapter. Was in 2008, I really started going out and seeing bands in Carbondale, and at that point, I was kind of between bands. I put out a second solo album in 2007, which was again like graduation sort of thing, and yeah, so I started seeing bands, and that was around the time that I met Mike, and I definitely remember seeing a lot of shows with Mike. You were saying, you saw some more shows during that first era, really, than you were playing, and I think that sounds accurate, really, for both of us. Like that first year, 2008, I didn't really have a band, so I was just kind of uh, meeting everybody and soaking things in and seeing a lot of those bands you mentioned, like Broken Bricks, and for me, Secondary Modern were really big. I was realized, okay, there's people um, doing music that almost doesn't sound too far removed from what I would want to do. Like there's a place for me on this scene. Whereas back in McLeansboro, it often felt like that there wasn't really the space on the scene for a lot of diversity. Um, so it was kind of like an eye-opening experience that year. And then by the end of the year, I had started a band called the DeVault Revolt with my brother, which was a name that my
Mm.
dad used to joke when we were children about having a family band a la the Brady Bunch or whatever. My dad's last name was not DeVault, it was Gibbs. So for him, it was kind of like whatever. And he just, mispronounced it in order to make the name work, DeVault Revolt. Um, But yeah, so we started that with my brother in 2009. We'd already been in a couple of bands back in McLeansboro before that, but that would be the last band that we were in together. We only really did a few shows, but we did a lot of at Boobies the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. And around that time was whenever
Hey,
you know,
real
I
quick,
had asked.
Boobies is back too, Mike.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
was gone for a while, left Carbondale, closed down. It
Oh,
is
I
back
heard.
in full effect. I'm sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah,
I heard it. I was at all those Devault Revolt shows too.
yeah, you were. So yeah, Devault Revolt didn't really last very long, maybe about a year late away into '09. But during that time, I had asked these Magnificent Tapeworms if they could do a show with us, and they're like, "Well, we could, but our drummer's kind of moving out of town, so if we could find a drummer in time." And then a mutual friend kind of gave them the idea that they should just ask me to do it, and so I kind of came in thinking it might just be one show. Wound up being 5 years, and we toured, we put out a couple of albums, we had the second album out on vinyl, which I think we were the first Carbondale band, to do that while still all living in Carbondale, to put out a vinyl record in quite a long time. It was like 2010 when we put that out, and yeah, so we did some touring through that era, and then we kind of had a second era where we stayed more local, and we had a little bit of a lineup change, and worked on a whole bunch of new material. And then that band ended around 2013, and for a second there, I thought maybe I'd leave Carbondale, and I went back to McLeansboro for about 4 or 5 months, and then wound up just coming right back to Carbondale in 2014, and that's when I kind of decided that I needed to like come out as trans, and I transitioned and everything. And so there was a couple of years there between the Tapeworms ending in 2013 and the Jenny and the Housewives started in 2016. And so I guess you could think that like what the Devault Revolt did and my solo albums that I did and the other bands that I was in McLeansboro was kind of like, I mean, it's all really one thing with what Jenny and the Housewives wound up being. It's just sort of like the best iteration of that.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, the drummer that I started the band with in 2016, she's still our drummer 8 years later, and we've been on an incredible journey together. The rhythm guitarist joined, or I'm sorry, actually, we kind of have a weird dynamic with our guitar, so to call him the rhythm guitarist just doesn't really feel right. But I generally take solos, and he plays a lot of lead lines, though. But Vic, his name is Vic. He's amazing, and he joined us in 2017. And
Awesome.
we have Mike Alderfer on bass now, and he joined.
Oh shit.
He was the last to join. He joined in 2021. Yeah, yeah. And that's been great. He's just been, amazing to have too. So yeah, between Miranda and Vic and Mike, I feel really blessed to have like, a really creative band to be able to put across my songs. Most of the
Yeah,
songs that we
awesome.
do are a lot of stuff that, like they may have started out as like solo acoustic pieces that, I was just playing with a guitar, and then we just kind of build from there. And I guess
Nice.
mostly I would call it, very like we joked when we started that we were glam grunge, because I think you can hear a little bit of, there's definitely some Crazy Horse in there and some Nirvana, but also a bit of like, that sort of T-Rex or Slade stomp. So,
Nice. That's great. And I'll give it just a quick summary of my own stuff. So when I started in Carbondale, I was in a band called The Watch, which didn't last terribly long. But it was mostly a cover band. And then I started playing with Tony Imony, who's went on to be played in the Blue Meanies for years, and he's in a band called Nonagon now out of Chicago, and they're killer. And Tony and I were roommates, lived in several houses together, and played in this band for a few years. And we paired up with a fellow named Brian Vaughn, who's a terrific guitar player, and he's currently in a band called Gooey, also out of Chicago. Really good kind of alternative pop, but really good stuff, tight songwriting. And so that was the Nice Old Coolies, the Coolies for short. We were in Carbondale for a few years at about the time the Beanies were playing and other bands like that were playing. And then that transitioned to a band called Monster Truck, which played at Boobies and all the other local places in town. And it was short-lived but fun. And the lineups kind of started to shift. People graduate, move away, that kind of stuff. Somebody else comes in, somebody else goes, and ended up a couple of members of these previous bands and a couple of new guys came together and formed a band called Crank. And Crank was around for several years, put out some records, toured around the country, had a blast. And while we were doing Crank, I had a whole bunch of like odd little tunes that just didn't fit with what Crank did. You can imagine what Crank did: heavy, driving, mechanical, crunchy. Crank, right? It just kind of goes with that name.
Yeah, I think I heard some of
So
Frank.
yeah. So and we were around through the late 90s. And then but during that time period, there was a bunch of other stuff that I was writing. Some of it fit Crank's mold, some of it didn't. And the stuff that didn't just kind of got shelved. And me and the guitar player from that band would get together every once in a while and play some of those things. And they were generally weird, off kilter, particularly lyrically, but also musically. It's an odd time signature, stuff like that. And it just got collectively put to the side. And then we would play those every once in a while just for ourselves. And I was able to rope my old drummer, Tony, back into the studio. And then we did a couple of like EPs of that stuff. And that was the DNA Vibrators. And since then, there have been a half a dozen members in and out over the years as we've done a show or two here or there. But it really wasn't a going concern until my daughter saw the poster at Lost Cross and said, "You guys need to do a show." And we said, "Why not?" And definitely, I mean, I was looking in the mirror going, "I'm not getting any younger. And then when am I going to do it if I'm not going to do it right now?" Right. So we did, and it's been so much fun, man. It's been great. And the weirdest thing that you you both might have your own perspective on this. I'd like to hear it actually. But it was weird to go back in some of those clubs and be an old graybeard, right? And realize though, like when we were headlining at the Hangar, for example, we were 24 and we're the oldest people in there. And now I ain't lying, I'm almost 60 and I'm not the oldest guy in there, right? And there'll be 19-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 35-year-olds, 45-year-olds, up at way beyond where I'm counting. That's a change, right? That was not how it was 30 years ago, but it absolutely is how it is, at least in Carbondale today, right? And I'm just going to ask you both comment on that. Like, have you seen that too? Like, you go into a club and you're just like, there's dudes older than my dad in here. What's going on? I'm not trying to be ageist because I'm the ageist guy. I'm the one that's the old guy that's in there now. Have you experienced that? Because I definitely have. Either one of you, go ahead.
Well, I've experienced
Uh,
the opposite. I've been at Lost Cross and looked around and kind of had that realization that, oh shit, I'm the oldest person here. And I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 later this year. So yeah, I've had that experience where I realized suddenly, like, wow, everyone here is a baby, and uh, I'm not used to that. I'm used to the idea that there is somebody older than me at the show. Even if only 5 or 10 years older than me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I feel it's kind of but yeah, I also I think it definitely has something to do with just the fact that we're very much in rock and roll and rock based music, and where that has progressed from its origins, and so I think there's definitely a certain I don't want to call it anachronistic quality to doing what we do, but I think we all sort of know that we're working in a style of music that's not the necessarily any longer the predominant cultural force. So we're kind of in our own little niche area, and within that niche area, you know um there's things change a little bit slower, and so it's like if you think about in the 70s or 80s, would somebody who was in their 70s or 80s have gone in for like the current rock artists, and they might have said, oh no, this is not what I grew up with. But we're kind of in a thing now where like a new younger band that's coming out now playing like a punk influenced sound that's really there's not been that much uh necessarily change or I don't want to say that it hasn't evolved, because I mean we've seen things go through stylistic shifts from season to season, but overall I think like you know with rock there's sort of something to it where the people that are interested in it and they're into it, um if it appeals to you, it's going to appeal to you whether you're young or whether you're old.
Yeah, I hear you.
So
I hear exactly. I appreciate your
somebody that's
perspective there.
older
Yeah.
can go like watch somebody that's 20. Is it's not uncommon for somebody to I guess it's to be expected that if you're 21 years old and you see a 21-year-old rocking out on stage, you go hell yeah. And then next thing you know, you're 40 and you see a 21-year-old rocking out on stage, but you're still like hell yeah. And next thing you know, you're 60 and you see a 21-year-old rocking out on stage, and it's like hell yeah. It's because it's still within your own wheelhouse.
Yeah. Mike, what about your experience? You've been traveling around the country a little bit playing. Have you seen that phenomenon happen?
I'm just glad that the kids are still doing it.
Yeah.
And like, I had this weird experience. I was just on tour with playing bass in Destroyer of Light, and I was playing in San Francisco, and I was just like, holy shit, I played at this club like 13 years ago, and it just like blew me away. But I don't know, it all depends on like the kind of music it is, because I was at the Continental Club in Austin seeing like Deke Dickerson, and there were some old motherfuckers in there. They're probably like 80 years old, and they're still like
Still doing their shit.
having a blast. But the other day I saw the Mummies, and like that band is as old as I am,
And they're
and
still
like
killing it.
oh yeah, it was great. And like my buddy's band was opened up for him, and he's I don't know, he's probably in his 50s, and everybody there was like there's I saw people with X's on their hands, and then I saw like a bunch of old dudes there, and it was just like it was everybody was there, and everybody was having a good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Jenny, I think you hit it right on the head. It's kind of the cultural moment for rock and roll, you know, that initial energy from like, the mid 60s, like the Kinks and other bands like that made it big. That energy from their garage is the same kind of energy you hear when you go down the basement of Lost Cross or the Commune or any of the clubs that are in town, and multiply that across the US. If you can pick up a couple of guitars, you can make some noise, right? And so it's just as appealing for me now, when that 19-year-old is up there doing it as it was when I was 19 and doing it. That is pretty cool. I think you nailed that right on the head there. So hey, I'm looking at the time. We could do this probably for a long time, but let's get to some music. So what I'd like to do is take a moment here, and I'm going to share screen, and I've got a song queued up for Cortege, and we're going to kind of take a look at that and listen to it. You can leave your mic on if you want, but if you're just listening through your speakers, you may want to mute yourself so that you cut that feedback loop out. And then afterwards, I'll remind you, everybody, if you're muted, to unmute so that we can talk about what we just experienced. Okay, I'm going to share the screen right now, and we should have a video that I'm sure Mike recognizes. And we are going to hit play. This is Cortege. Awesome. If you guys want to unmute.
Wow,
Well,
that was beautiful.
the video didn't play, but the audio sure did.
The video didn't
Oh,
play.
I just watched the video. Yeah, I saw the whole video.
Oh wow.
Let's
I
hope
didn't.
that after this is all done and I go back and look, it shows up on the screen. So I had that happen earlier where it didn't show up for me, but it showed up for somebody else. So let's hope that
Oh,
that happened. But either way, if it's just a black screen and you just listen to some music, that's great too.
Could you drop
Uh,
it in somewhere else? Like, could you cut it and then cut it
I
in?
possibly can. Yeah, if we need to, we'll go back and look at that for sure. So so
Well, I
uh
saw it and it was great. That was like just beautifully shot. The location looks, amazing and so scenic. And some of those video effects I really thought were really cool.
so like real life story, right? Where you just the car broke down, you decided to eat some fruit off of a crazy cactus out in the middle of nowhere.
well, yeah. Well, it's kind of well, it's like that. I came up with the idea of like misadventures in the desert, and I think everybody knows that I like to eat, so it's kind of like a poke at that.
Nice. Nice. I have to tell you that you absolutely, like you mentioned it earlier, and I'm glad that you did because I didn't want to say it later and make it sound like I was being derogatory or something where you're like, it's got that kind of spaghetti Western feel, right? And obviously that's what you're going for. You're going for this kind of like open sky soundtrack kind of feel that you would associate with that classic kind of Western vibe, but tied into a little bit of that kind of that Americana retelling of that story too, right? That's you kind of get that feel through the whole thing, that obviously that big reverb fills in your spaces since you're playing most of your stuff. I know that the bells are in there and that fills it in too, but all of those things just kind of add that temporal kind of space, right? So that those sounds will kind of add up over time as you're playing until you get like on a couple of your songs where it just gets, really big and thunderous at the end, and that's really kind of awesome. It's what I've been digging about what I've been listening to your stuff, that this thematic stuff that carries forward and just continues to its logical conclusion.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, a big part of it is like really honing in on the twang, because when people hear twang, it's like a visceral thing, and it's very rustic and of like you're instantly drawn to open space and like the Southwest per se. But like there's also like layers of like 70s and 80s music that I really like that shows its head and peeks through bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
can.
it's essentially like all my favorite music mixed together.
Yeah, that's awesome, and you can tell, and there's been a progression, like you said. It's becoming more of that twang influenced kind of uh, country esque, but not country, but it has that. It feels like it's encapsulating the country, right? That you're painting that picture with, right? That's pretty awesome. Uh, Jenni, I've got a cut from your band that it was very exciting. You and several other artists participated in that NPR Tiny Desk Crashers event that the locals there in town put together. It was fantastic. Mike, I don't know if you saw that or saw some clips from any of that, but this um, um, uh, River to River folks put together. That's I'm remembering that correctly, Jenni, right? It's the
Well, it was a collaboration between River to River, specifically Max and Nathan Colombo
Nate. Yeah, that's
representing
yeah,
I forget there was a specific um, organization that he's
yeah.
doing that
And
through. I can't remember the name offhand, but
mm, hopefully there'll be listeners that will correct us or
yeah.
add to that. But But so Mike, there's this group that came together of these local recording artists, engineers, producers, and they were going to bombard NPR with their Tiny Desk concert contests that they do every year, and they absolutely did. There was like 130 or so artists that they recorded over a few long weekends, and just brought lots of folks in. And Jenni and the Housewives is represented there, and this is a terrific tune from them. So I'm going to put this up here, and I'd like for you guys again, mute once I share screen, and we'll be ready to go like right now. This is Jenni and the Housewives.
Hi, we're Jenni and the Housewives. This is a song for children. It's a song for parents. It's a song for parents to sing to their children. It's called You Don't Have to Be a Boy If You Don't Want to, and You Don't Have to Be a Girl If You Don't Want to, and if you want to, you can be a boy or girl or neither or both. And it goes like this. Well, you don't have to be a boy if you don't want to. You don't have to be a girl if you don't want to. And if you want to, you can be a boy or girl or neither both. Your path is set before you. Who you are is no one else. Your body is unique in design, and you're as spoken just the same as anyone else is. You may not know at first what it's like for you. Everyone will love you just the same. You don't have to be a boy if you don't want to. You don't have to be a girl if you don't want to. And if you want to, you can be a boy or girl and you will both. Na 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 na. You can play with any toys that make you happy. You can wear whatever clothing makes you smile. As you go older, you'll become the person you were meant to be. As you go older, you can be exactly who you wanna be. As you go older, you'll always be my special one to me. Oh, as we go older, you'll always be my special one to me. We usually go right into the other song. I'm not used to hearing the end of that song. I was really going
That I love Mike, you're still muted. I love the very end of that, just because
Yeah,
they're
I
like,
just love
they're
that.
going, clap, man, what's your problem? That's great. So, I was surprised. Not let me back up. I wasn't surprised that that was a song that you'd written, a little while ago or whatever. But I was surprised when I started to look for just that was the most recent video. That's the song that you've had written and have performed for a long time now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I wrote that song in 2016.
So I would imagine, I would hope that uh, the kind of reception that you would get today would maybe be a better reception than maybe you would have gotten in 2016.
It's always gotten a great reception, honestly. Yeah, I mean,
That's
with the
that's
crowd that
awesome.
we go to, it's it's definitely like kind of the single, whenever we had to pick a song to do for that. It's also, it's just to me, it's a message that I want to, if I ever, when I do, exercise with um engaging with the outside world a little bit more and putting things out there into a space like that, especially sending that off to NPR, which is, a, they would have had a lot of power to expose that to other people. So that's, like what I want to highlight whenever I do sort of get, that arena to do so on a bigger scale. Definitely pick that song
Yeah.
for that reason, because I just want people, it's a song for kids, a song for parents, and I hope somewhere that there are parents that can sing that to their kids, because I think it's like that thing that I never heard that maybe I needed to hear.
Yeah. So I also just comment just about the overall the recording itself. I know the kind of pressure that Max and Nathan were under, just really pretty immense, that they invited this on themselves, and they were literally shuffling out people on the hour, getting a band in and getting a band out and making a recording and moving on to the next one. And
Well, less than an hour.
uniformly high quality, great
Oh
stereo
yeah.
separation, really, really clear tones. And it's like, that's hard to do when you have the whole day to get the studio ready for you to come in and do something. And I know that they were doing it just one after the other after the other. It also means that the band has to be ready to go, because if you're not going to get 5 takes and be able to overdub something, you're just going to have to do it. And if it does it, great. And if it doesn't, then that was your time. See you later. Right. So was
We
it
were in
like
and
that?
we
Yeah.
were in and out of that room in less than 10 minutes. They had
Wow.
they had a little room set up down the hallway that was sort of like a great, all the artists were kind of, just preparing for their turn, and kind of mingling. And then, whenever one artist would get done, they'd come filing out of down the hallway from the studio and say, okay, it's the next person's turn. So then they'd rush the next, there's somebody there ready with the next person, and they'd rush them down there. And, we go in, we literally just had like our guitars around our necks, and our drummer had the sticks and nothing else. And we just rush in there and quickly, got on the amps, and I think we did like one take just to kind of uh test the and I said, hey, we could do that better, let's do that again real quick. And so we did do a second take on that, which luckily is a very short song, so that worked. And then we were out of there, in out. It was probably, like I said, 10 minutes that we were in that room tops,
Nice.
and then it was the next person's time. So
Well, definitely, Mike, and any of the listeners that are out there, I would urge you to look up that page. If you look up NPR Tiny Desk Crashers, Carbondale, or anything like that, you'll find it. And there's literally like 120 or more videos, and it spans the range of traditional country, hip hop, rap, alternative, metal, and everything in between. It's just everything in Carbondale is represented there, which was really awesome to see. Awesome. So the tune that I selected for the DNA Vibrators, I'm going to get that up here in a second. I had like several of them to choose from. I'm just going to choose the shortest one so we can get in and out of here and move on to hype the show a little bit. So I'm going to share screen again, if you don't mind muting while we're playing the music, and then we can laugh at it after we're done. Okay. Here we go. Share that screen. Ah, muted.
Rad.
Oh, man, dude. That was really cool. It was I really enjoyed it. I was trying to look at this. The screen was really small. I was trying to read
The
that lyric
lyrics.
to the side,
Yeah.
and I couldn't really make out any of like what you were singing either. And
Yeah.
the print on my screen was really really small. And then I finally
I
figured
see.
out like right at the 11th hour that I could just rotate my screen
And there you
and
are. Yeah.
make it bigger. And then by the time then the song was over. So I'm like,
That's the
what
story of
was
our
that song?
lives.
What was that? What was it called? What was that song called?
That song is called Countdown, and it was
Okay.
every now and again my daughters who went to school there will be back in town, and it's written about one of they were twins. It was written about one of them, uh, and she was in my office one day at work, and uh, she was like, we were having like a heart to heart moment, right? And she just was like, this is if we want to get philosophical about lyrics and all that kind of shit, this goes back to like the romantic poets in England where Wordsworth would say shit like, uh, make poetry out of everyday language. Like that our language should be able to express ourselves artistically without having to dress it up or without having to know these other conventions. It should just be part of our natural forms of speech. And so my daughter walks into my office after, and we're having this like heart to heart, and she's like, "You put a lot of pressure on my back, but so do I. I'm not going to lie." And I was like, I love every bit of that sentence. And so that's what started that song. And that's what the first lyric is in that particular song, where she's just kind of unloading about how she's feeling under pressure, like it's a countdown, and that's the name of the tune. And it's like, damn, it was that it wrote itself after you just she gave me that initial burst of it anyway. Yeah, that's us in a nutshell. In and out pretty fast. Uh, hopefully,
It reminded me of Minutemen a little bit.
yeah, there's definitely a feel for that in there. They're a big influence on me, that's for sure. You can kind of hear it there. Uh, so hey, this goes out to the folks that are still anybody that has watched any part of this besides us. We Cortege, Jenni and the Housewives, DNA Vibrators, are playing together at PK's on Thursday, June 13th, and you owe it to yourself.
Yes, you do.
You deserve it to go out and see this lineup. Like, you'll not likely see Mike's band come through here again. It's every 8 or 10 years that he makes it through here. So this is the time to see him. And this will be the first time that Jenni's band and my band plays together, which will be very cool. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be super
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. When you said that you were adding on to this show, I was like, oh, great, because I was like, I had you on my list of people that I was gonna try to like, get a hold of for a show sometime soon. So,
So what I hope will happen is tons of, yeah, I mean, it's June 13th, so summer session has begun. Students will need something to do on a Thursday, particularly. I don't know if Sunset concerts start yet by that week. I think it's maybe after that. So whether it's Sunset concert or not, this is after hours for Sunset concert. So hopefully if that's the case, people will come out and check everybody out here. And
and I
even if
believe Case is also having another show earlier in the day. They're having a singer-songwriter, I believe, that's
nice.
performing at maybe 6 p.m. Again, somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. So yeah, if there's not a sunset concert, you can still have two shows.
Yep, have a great afternoon and have an awesome night to round it out. And Mike, I hope that your show's leading up. I think you're coming from Louisville, right?
Mhm.
Before this show. Hope that your shows on the way up here are awesome and you're having a great time. I hope Carbdondale is just another one of those that you'll take with you and be like, man, that was a super fun show. That's what we were hoping that
Yeah,
the energy will happen.
I imagine it'll be quite the reunion and quite the blowout.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to that. So I I know
Don't do Thirsty Thursdays anymore. I heard that's not a thing
that
anymore.
is not a thing. Yeah. Um, so I know that
So we're still
Jenni,
thirsty, and it's still Thursday.
that is true. So maybe we'll bring it back. Uh,
I
so
had
many
to
other,
take my glasses off because I was like, we're all three wearing glasses,
we are.
and And at first I was like, that's really cool. It's like a camaraderie. And then somewhere along the way, I was like, I want to be different.
Now it'll not be cool if I take mine off. I mean, you already did it. That's that. I guess I've just got to leave mine on. I have to leave mine on, or I'm not going to be able to see shit. So that's just how that goes. All right. So looking forward to it. Mike, safe travels. Have a blast on your tour. When we're looking forward to seeing you here, Jenny. I'm
Yeah, I
looking
can't
very
wait to
much
see you
forward.
again, Mike. It's been years since I've seen Mike, and
Yeah.
I'm just really looking forward to hanging out
Mike,
and
Mike, this is so
and
cool.
cheering.
Yeah. So I hope it's so much fun that you'll swing back through maybe sooner than, a few years.
Well, I'll be in Hotlanta, so I'll be a little bit closer.
That is a little closer. And of course,
Yeah.
Nashville's somewhere in between. So there might be something happen. You never know, right? Something might happen. Or you might just be like, we need somebody to play. And I know these guys up in Carbondale. I'm going to give them a holler. So
Louisville's got a cool scene too, so
yeah,
that's real.
nice. Yeah, that's not terribly far away from Atlanta. And I imagine Atlanta is probably itself hopping, and Athens and a lot of the other towns that are in the area there have always been, pretty well known as for their music. So that is awesome. Anyway, dude, looking forward to seeing you. Looking forward to playing with everybody. And you out there, make sure to put on your calendar June 13th, Thursday at PK's. All right, we're signing
613.
off. Say that again.
613.
Yes. All right. See y'all later. Mike, Jenny, see you. And we should stay on. We won't tell them we're going to stay on, but we'll sign off. All right. Bye, everybody.